Hi, we're live.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I'm going to get the link open so I can,
We are live now.
yep. Oh, I heard you and I'm gonna mute the video because we don't need that. Cool. How's your morning been so far?
It has been crazy as ever so far, but good, not bad. Not a bad crazy. How about
Made an
you?
omelet.
You did? I haven't
Yeah.
even eaten yet this morning.
I haven't really been eating like well during the mornings because I feel like I've sort of been rushing around. But this morning I woke up at 8. And then I was like, okay, I'll make an omelet at 9. So that's what I did. It was pretty good.
Good.
So I never showed you the end result of your Secret Santa gift for me.
Oh, you finished it. Very nice. Very nice. And
So I don't know. How do you hang it up? Do you get a frame?
I was just going to say to you, when you figure out what to do with it now, let me know because I have like 5 of them under a cabinet. I see people put them in frames,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I don't know. This was really fun. So I appreciated it.
I'm glad you liked it. Well, it's funny you bring that out because last night my niece had to drop something off here and somebody gave this to her and she did it for about 5 minutes and said, yeah, no, not for me.
Oh, how pretty.
Isn't that pretty? Can you see it?
Yeah. It's like the Little Mermaid, but not Disney.
Yep. So, and it's a big one. So I was very excited to see that outside my door. Yeah, so it's something else for me to work on during quarantining.
Oh, we have a question. Lily asks, how do I find my portfolio? All right, Lily. So it should be shared with you in your Google Drive account. So I can check to see if it should be your personal Gmail account and not your school account. But sometimes it is your school account. So you go into My Drive. And if you didn't drag your portfolio into the My Drive section, it'll be in the shared with me section. So once you're on like shared with me, that's where you'll see your portfolio. But if you still can't find it after these instructions, what I can do is talk to you offline and we can like do this together and I can try to like figure out where it is. So good question though. And also good morning.
Good morning.
Good. We have a couple of people watching. So interviewing 101. How many interviews have you been on, Lisa?
Oh my gosh. I would say probably in the course of my career, I'm going to say at least 50. No, probably around 40 to 50.
That you have been the interviewee or the interviewer?
That I've been the interviewee.
Ah.
I've been interviewer for probably about, I'm going to say about the same amount. Because usually when you interview for a position, you're interviewing at least 5, 6, 7 people. So those numbers add up. So a lot on both in many, many different fields, blue collar jobs as well as educational jobs. So yeah, run the gamut.
Yeah, I was just asking, hey, and just asking Lisa how many interviews she thinks that she's been on, both as interviewee and as interviewer.
I don't know how many I've been on.
Right? At this point, you're like, huh.
A few.
I feel like I've been on fewer interviewees and I've been on many interviewer ones, which seems odd.
Yeah.
So
it
I
means
think
you're a good interviewer and you got the job without many interviews.
Yeah, so I think back to when I first began my career in teaching, and I was certified in social studies, and in the mid 90s there were no jobs. So literally I would go to a teaching fair, and I would have, 10 interviews that day, on the spot interviews. So if you count all of those types of events as well, every single job fair you've ever been to on both sides, it really, those numbers add up. I think we'd all be surprised at how many times we've really sat in those seats and you don't even think about it.
Oh, Lily's asked me a question. How would you like me to get a hold of you after this? I will contact you. So I will send you a Zoom link via Remind, and then we can just have a private chat, and then we can work through where to find your portfolio. So, yeah, no, that's a good point about like your field. Like, there's interviewing really depends also on your field as well. I mean, you guys like listen to Jackie, and you met her when she was interviewing with like the top big law firms. They had like a 3-day nonstop interview process, and it was like 80 interviews.
Brutal.
80 interviews. How did you do that?
Brutal. Yeah.
I think higher education is very similar, though not in our field or at GCC necessarily, but I know from seeing my wife do all the residence life interviews, they're pretty intense. You often have the phone interviews at first. The committee can decide whether they want to bring you on campus, and then they bring you there for a full day where you meet everybody, all the students, all the staff. Everybody's asking you questions. So you might have like 100 people asking you interview questions that day, and you got to be on all day long.
Right. When I was
and they might even bring you back and make you like present or do a presentation or a lesson or.
Oh, that's what Sammy had to do just now, like before his new position, and it was like 6 hours long.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've never done that. So, but we're not going to go into depth of like 6-hour interviews. It's just like basic stuff today.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think interviews are basically the same anywhere you look. And something that's always kind of occurred to me is that maybe in the different fields, they look a little bit differently. And I think one of the burning questions I always had when I was young is when they give you those like strange questions, what the heck are they looking for? What does an interviewer want to hear from you when they ask you something like, what is your favorite animal? Right? Because you think, what place does that have in an interview for a teaching position? Right? So I'll pose that question to you guys. What do you think an interviewer is looking for?
The ability to communicate, the ability to have a conversation about your favorite animal.
I think they want to see your adaptability to new questions or new situations, a sense of your personality, and also potential fit. Like, are you going to react poorly? Are you going to be like put off by this answer? Or are you going to roll with it, give a fun response that's still appropriate, and maybe you're a good fit for the organization?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I think no matter what kind of interview you're going on, there are some general rules that always should be followed for every single interview you go on, no matter where it is or what level it is. I can remember there was a time when I was interviewing for restaurant positions. I was the interviewer, and I can't tell you how many people came in dressed. I had a woman come in wearing slippers, fuzzy slippers. They came in often dressed very inappropriately, and they didn't get the job because of that.
Right.
So that's one thing that sticks out for me, is the way a person presents themselves, their appearance when they're going on a job interview.
I found a nice infographic that I wanted to share on the screen that shows before during, and after an interview. And it's sort of the things that we're talking about. The first step is your dress and your appearance. So I'm going to share the screen. Now, where did I just randomly, I was like interviewing infographics. That's what I looked up.
Oh, this is
I
great.
thought this was nice because I liked that it broke it up into, you know, before, the during, and then the after.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so I can post this link later with the video, so people can go back and look at it. But I think with the dress, you know, we always try to have our students like dress up when we do our mock interview days, or we'll have like our professional dress days, and sometimes they're like put off by it. But you know, it's what's expected in an interviewing place in the workforce. You don't have to wear a suit necessarily, but it just depends on what you're interviewing for. You just want to look like professional. So how do you look professional?
My rule of thumb, and I grew up around a lot of blue collar jobs, and so those blue collar folks would, you know, they took pride on being ready to go. You know, they didn't necessarily need to look like they had a suit and tie on.
Right.
To look presentable. You don't want to wear ripped up stuff. Though, you know, so anyway, the rule of thumb that I've always gone by is dress for what you anticipate to be the best, the most professional day of work you're going to have in that job. So if you're a mechanic, you know, maybe showing up for a mechanic's interview in a nice polo or like just a button down shirt and a pair of jeans, that's probably appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
It's also something that you could go right to work in. So people around me always said, dress like you could go right to your first day of work for that interview. And I don't think I necessarily agree with that statement. I think you want to dress for the best possible day of work you're going to have. And in education or any professional realm, that's going to be a suit or a dress.
Blazer and, you know, blouse, blazer and, you know, button down shirt. Like the thing is you can make it happen with your budget, because I know that professional clothes are expensive. So I have built my professional wardrobe by buying off season, between seasons, looking for good deals. Sometimes I've done the secondhand, like Goodwill type of thing, when I was really, really broke. But that was okay, because
well, suits are expensive. I don't know anybody that can afford $200. I mean, you're looking for a job. You're not making the money yet. So
exactly,
affording a $250 suit.
Probably 75% of the clothing that's in my closet came from the thrifty shopper. My mom and I used to go all the time, and the majority of my wardrobe came from there. Not everything, but the majority. And it has saved me a ton of money over the years.
Mm-hmm.
My
I know.
first
So this isn't a professional shirt. This is just business casual. But this shirt I got for free because my sister's mother-in-law was like, she got it from a thrift store, and she's like, "Oh, I think Christina would like it."
Yeah.
Well, she was correct.
Yeah.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that. I certainly feel like there's no shame. Some people do think there's shame in that, and I think there is no shame bell on that one. My first were bought at the Goodwill for $15 and taken to the dry cleaner right away, $15, and for $30 I had a brand new to me, clean, ready to go suit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Your local tailor or dry cleaner can do wonders for pretty cheap. And also, if you are like in Batavia, I know that the YWCA has Sister's Closet, so that's for women. They have professional clothes that are cheap and are really nice quality. So if that's ever a concern, as you know, that you're going for like an interview, you know, talk to us advisors. I'll point you towards the good deals.
There you go.
let's talk about number 2, unless there's anything else you want to add about dress.
No, I think a segue into number 2 is that you want to know your audience. You know, we're talking about this dress, and what do you wear to an interview? And it is important to know the audience and maybe their perspective. So if you're looking for a part-time job and it's at a farm and you go dressed in a suit, I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to tell you to get off their property. That's very likely going to happen. And here we are telling you, you know, dress better, groom better than your interviewer, and you certainly are. But they're gonna think, who is this person who's showing up on this dairy farm with a suit and tie? That's not okay, unless you're willing to work in that suit and tie, right? I know a construction guy who is in his 90s, and he has worn a shirt and tie every day to work. And I worked with him, and he got right down in the trenches and got dirty, and he wears that white shirt and tie, and it gets dirty every day. And the next day he's got a white shirt and tie on again. And that was his thing. You know, it was kind of quirky, but that was his thing. But I will tell you, you show up on a dairy farm with a suit and tie, they're going to laugh at you, right? Know your audience.
But if you also show up for, you know, an interview and you're just wearing a polo, no offense to the polo, but they're going to be like, this person's not serious.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very much a know your audience.
Yep.
And furthermore, you know, do your homework on the people you're going to be interviewing with. And sometimes you don't know who you're going to be interviewing with. You've never met them before. And it's not something like HR will tell you who exactly is on the committee. You know, it's always sort of a surprise. Sometimes it's not, but usually a surprise.
Mm-hmm. I think researching is important. It shows that the interviewer that you care enough to take time out of your day and read up about the company or the organization. Even if you don't know like who you're going to be interviewing with, or maybe you're like somewhat unfamiliar with, you know, larger body that like hosts whatever place you're, you know, interviewing with. It's just good advice. And, you know, the internet has everything basically. So.
And it's very possible that one of the first questions you're going to hear is, what do you know about this organization already?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really nice to be able to say something intelligent about them.
If you don't say something intelligent about them, they're not going to think you're serious.
Exactly.
They will have expected that you've done whatever research you can.
Yep.
And understand when things are not available online. But let's say you're applying for a job at Upward Bound. You would be able to find all of our staff faces on our website. You'd be able to learn about the federal TRIO programs, and that Upward Bound is one of them. You would maybe even be able to find some things online, like some YouTube live videos, and you could comment on that. You know, mm-hmm. You could say, hey, this is some really nice work that I see your office doing. And, you know, here, maybe even offer up like one example of times you want to show that you could fit into that culture. So offer a very quick, simple bit about yourself and how you connect to that office.
Mm-hmm. Being on time. That's big.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. I definitely like the arriving 5 to 10 minutes early. I think I used to err too cautiously and arrive too early. And then I would just sit in my car while I was waiting to be appropriately early.
Yeah, I've done that.
Far, it's better to be too early than be late.
Yeah, you don't want a flat tire or something to circumvent your interview day.
I think also if you're driving to, say, you know, since all of our students are rural, if you're driving to a city, say you're driving to Rochester or Buffalo, you know, make sure you know the directions ahead of time. Have the phone number of the place you're interviewing with or the interviewer. So in case you can't be on time because of a flat tire, you can call and let them know.
Right.
Flaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I like number 4, always be nice to the receptionist because they do everything.
And I cannot tell you how many times my secretary would come into me after an interview or before an interview and say, "Oh my God, that person out there, they just did whatever." And so, yeah, don't think for 1 minute that they're not interviewing you during that time that you're sitting in that in that waiting room.
Mhm.
Yep.
Number 5, turning off your cell phone during the interview.
Leave it in the car.
And what?
Yeah.
Leave it in your car. Yeah, that's a good
Leave it in
idea.
the car.
Yep.
Because inevitably, so you turn it off and you keep it out of sight, but it's in your back pocket, right? And when you go to sit down, you're like, oh, shoot, my phone's in my back pocket. I don't want to sit on my phone. And so you go to take it out of your phone, and it just creates an awkward moment that you don't need. And you don't need that going through your head either. So leave it in what you came in.
True. Number 6, shaking your hand firmly and maintaining good eye contact. I know no one's shaking hands right now, but typically in Western society, we do shake hands when we meet each other. And we talk about a good firm handshake and that not being too loose, not too tight. You don't want to crush the interviewer's hand. You also don't want to be a dead wrist. So
That's absolutely true. Something I have noticed in that introductory period when you first walk into an interview room, sometimes you're only interviewing with one person, right? No problem. You shake their hand. You wait for them to offer you your place to sit, and you graciously sit down and be ready for your questions or whatever they have in store for you. You take direction from them. But what happens when you walk into a room with 10 people? And I know I see this at like Batavia High School for the Operation Graduation. There may be like 6 people sitting around this table who are all judging your Operation Graduation project. And that's sort of an interview type situation. So I think it's really important to note that it's okay to take the time to go around and introduce yourself to each and every person, shake each and every person's hand. You might think it feels awkward, but it's something you might want to get used to because they're going to understand. They've probably set it aside enough time. You can go around and introduce yourself to every person. If you walk into the room, and I suppose if you get the feeling that it's a pretty casual atmosphere, maybe you want to do just a general introduction, but personally, I like to see a personal introduction to every person.
the most I had in a room was for my Rotary scholarship in high school. There were a ton of Rotarians who were there. I think that there were maybe like 10 or so. And I was like, it was my first time ever being in an interview situation, and there were 10 people. And I didn't really know what to do. So I just I did shake everyone's hand, and I was thinking, oh my God, I hope this isn't too much. But I got the scholarship. So
there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, I've done that, and I just know that it feels really awkward. And one thing about interviewing that you must practice is the awkward. So there are 2 things in an interview that I think are most awkward. One is the length that the introduction time can be. And you feel like the first person you introduced yourself to is like judging you hardcore because it's taking you so long to get around this table, introducing and trying to remember everybody's name. The other is that silence after you're done talking. You're finished what you're saying, you're done. Let there be silence. And let them write their notes or take whatever time they need to ask you the next question. But that is, I think, the number one thing that needs to be practiced because it feels so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad. It feels awkward every time. As an interviewer, as an interviewee, if you're sitting on that panel, right, you're like trying to race to write your notes before your colleagues ask the next question.
Basically. Acting interested and alert. So using those nonverbal body cues to show that you're, interested in the person that you're talking to, that you're holding yourself in a professional way. So they suggest that, you can lean slightly forward. That usually happens naturally if you're listening anyway, or if you're about to speak. Same thing like with posture, that's something you might have to think about if you're not used to it. Avoid fidgeting. I know that can be difficult. If your hands cannot be seen, I don't know if like you can, just fidget with your pants underneath the table, but you need it to be like very quiet. I don't know. It's hard because I know that there's some people who just like they cannot help it. So what do you recommend for those?
Something silent. I am a fidgeter.
Mm-hmm.
To click a pen in a meeting or something, and it drives some people crazy. That's not cool, and it's especially not cool during an interview. What I recommend as a fidgeter is like to take a pen, twirl the pen in your hand. I don't know if you can all see me, but I'm just twirling the pen in my hand, and it's keeping me busy. And that fidgeting, for some personalities, I think helps to keep your focus. You're mindlessly fidgeting. You don't even know that you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So practicing something that is silent and it's not real obvious. Like it's not super obvious that I'm just twirling this pen a little bit in my hand, right? And it's silent. You can't hear it, but it's going to help me maintain my focus. The other thing you can do is sit on your hands or fold your hands in your lap and do as my mother said in church on a Sunday every week. Twiddle those thumbs.
I like the idea of having the pen in your hand and being able, because having a pen in your hand is very acceptable during an interview. It's not weird. It's not, nobody's going to be like, yeah, they're holding a pen. So having that pen and being able to, under the table or somewhere out of sight, do whatever, makes you feel comfortable. But I think that's a really good idea.
Yep.
Pen.
Have you guys ever heard the term, well, you've clearly heard this term, but a crutch?
What? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
A crutch in terms of public speaking or present.
Oh, yes.
So for our viewers, a crutch is something like a pen, like if you're a fidgeter or something, or maybe even that you're not a fidgeter, but it's something you do that sort of helps you maintain focus in some way. I knew a guy that he did all the trainings for a previous job I was in, and like full day trainings this guy was in with us, and he did this every single day. He always had like a styrofoam coffee cup in his hand, right? Very rarely was there actually coffee in that cup, right?
Interesting.
That was his crutch. He held it there, right by his belly or his chest, and that was it. And that when he had to be up all day in front of people and talking, so that he's not like, doing all these things with his hands and being distracting, he had a coffee cup and it stayed right there by his chest, and that was his crutch.
That's interesting.
My daughter is asleep on my computer, by the way.
That's cute.
That's adorable.
I want to transition to during the interview. I think some of this advice, like number 5, is a bit more pointed towards like people who've already been in the business for a while. But I think that in general, all of these skills, can apply to everyone. So being able to communicate your skills, you need to know like what are you good at, because they often ask you for like, what can you offer to a company or to an organization? They'll often ask you, about your weaknesses as well. So having a good idea of your strengths and your weaknesses and being able to talk about them appropriately with examples. And if it's a weakness, usually I like to explain how one is improving on it. So
Absolutely.
I don't know, anything else you want to add?
We have a question from Haley.
Yeah.
So Haley asks, if you were interviewing at a restaurant like Charcoal Corral, what would you wear?
I would wear a nice pair of pants with a nicer shirt, button-down shirt, and maybe,
Sweater.
I'm sorry,
I was gonna say, you could have a sweater even.
sweater, professional casual is how I would dress for that.
So you don't want any types, you don't want any like logos. You don't want to wear any type of like skulls or like butterflies or anything like that. Usually solid colors works well, and make sure that you're covered, your chest is covered. You want your shoulders to be covered as well. So it can be 3/4 length. It doesn't have to be full length. It could potentially even be short sleeve, but usually like half or 3/4 or full is appropriate.
No crazy nails, no crazy makeup, go more on the conservative side. Don't walk in 4-inch heels. Not a job like that, that would be, more conservative. But you don't have to wear a suit either. You don't have to go out and buy a suit, just professional casual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. So a question we didn't ask that I would like a follow-up, and I would make the assumption for Haley that, maybe you're going to be washing dishes or preparing food, or maybe you're going to be waitressing or scooping. So what exactly is the job? If you were interviewing for a catering manager position at the Charcoal Corral, I think the dress is going to be a little bit different. If you're just a part-time student employee, then Christina and Lisa said is absolutely correct. Look nice, look put together, be conservative, no crazy makeup. If you're interviewing for that higher level or management position, you should probably be in that suit.
Mm-hmm.
Because the expectation is that you are at a higher level than just someone who is preparing a pizza.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to look like you are in charge for anyone that comes in there.
Mm-hmm.
For pants, I mean, I prefer, usually neutral colors. So black, gray, brown, tan,
Navy.
Navy's nice.
Yeah, don't do like hot pink or, no.
Yeah. I think it's a bit harder with dresses and skirts if you don't have the means at this point to buy stuff that looks in a way professional. And I don't think you necessarily need it for like a student server job. Wearing pants is completely appropriate for an interview.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I kind of prefer it myself. I'm more comfortable, but yeah, you don't have to wear a dress or skirts.
Or heels.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I don't think I could, even if I wanted to anymore. I would fall down.
Yeah.
So I think, I personally think it's a little okay to show some of your personality in your dress.
Mm-hmm.
That does, like, if you are into like the biker culture, let's say, and you always wear leather, that's a choice. If you don't wear leather pants and a biker jacket to a job interview, right? Or maybe you do. I guess I don't know. But if it's really important to you that they know what your personality is, show them your personality. I would say don't be the best version you can be of yourself. Don't make yourself something you're not.
Mm-hmm. That will come out. If you try to do that, it'll come out in the interview anyway. You won't come across as sincere and real.
I mean, I like color, and my students know this. I like wearing like jewel tones. I like, having like bright colors, and I've definitely worn colors into interviews, and it has been completely fine. It's more about I'd say it's more about the prints and just making sure that you have something that's appropriate, and that's why I usually stick to solids.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I agree there. And for
Yeah.
guys, you know, sometimes you get some crazy ties. Sometimes you can get some inappropriate ties, you know, that look really cool or somebody gave you. Um, when I was a kid, and I suppose this is borderline inappropriate, I suppose, for me to talk about, but it's not really inappropriate. Um, my father gave me this really nice tie. It had like a 1920s woman on it, and it was the old Anheuser-Busch like lady, right?
Oh.
Really beautiful
Oh.
tie, and at the bottom it had Anheuser-Busch like logos on it. And I thought that tie looked just so great. It was just a beautiful tie. But that's not something you want to wear to a job interview, right? It has an Anheuser-Busch. It's advertising drugs, so to speak, even though it's not a beer advertisement, right?
Mhm.
So that is something that is borderline inappropriate.
Mhm.
Would you wear it to church? Would you wear it to grandma's house? But the interview, no.
I have seen men wear, like I remember a gentleman once we interviewed, it was during the holiday time, and his tie was, it was really cool. It had Christmas ornaments, but really cool. I was okay with that. You know, he was wearing a suit and his tie was, you know, fun. I've also seen men wear funky colored socks, and I kind of like that. Me personally, that does not put me off as an interviewer. I would look at that and say, "Oh, cool, they're you know a real human being too." So it's okay to do things like that. You just gotta know where the line is, and ask people
And
around you, "What do you think?" You know.
yeah, there again, it's a know your audience sort of thing. In higher education, I think we value the person, we value the personality, and showing off a little bit of that, like Lisa's saying with socks or those fun ties. What you choose to wear does tell something about you, right?
Mhm.
If you wore that Anheuser-Busch tie, what does that say about you? It says you make poor judgments, right?
I'm sorry. I really like your delivery of it.
And when you wear that Christmas tie with the Christmas ornaments, that's a little quirky, right? That's an interesting choice to wear to an interview. That's not a traditional like blue, red, black tie. That's fun, and that shows your personality. So I appreciate that example, Lisa, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. With let a little bit of your personality shine. If you are that fun person, you know, dress it up a little bit. I remember when we interviewed Sammy, he wore the flashiest suit I think I've ever seen.
I'm not
And
surprised.
and Sammy does not strike me as a flashy guy, but it did strike me in his interview. He was very
Mhm.
well put together, but flashy.
Mhm.
Yeah, his style journey is amazing. I will say, as someone who has known him before. Okay, continuing on. Oh, well, we don't have number two. That's more like if you're interviewing like that's not necessarily like for your first interview. I feel like that's more like along the lines where you're interviewing for like mid-level or higher level.
Yeah.
Can happen in entry level, but it's not necessarily as often. They usually have their set questions. So answering number three, making sure that you have your responses and you say them with confidence. That's something that you can practice at home. So, I like to think about what types of questions may be asked of me and maybe practice them with someone that I trust. So whether that's, a parent or a sibling or a significant other, someone who's going to give me their opinion who I trust.
I usually give the recommendation to ask the people that are recommending you. So you need to give letters of reference. Generally speaking, those letters of reference are typically going to be someone who can speak to your abilities for that job. Or maybe you have very few references and they're just basically character references, a teacher or a coach that can speak to your skill sets or your ability to work with a team. But it is a good idea to ask that maybe, if possible, to help you interview, to help you practice.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a chance they're familiar with the field you're going into and they can ask you very typical questions of that field.
That's true. Good point. Number 4, usually towards the end of the interview, but I mean, this can happen throughout the interview. You may have questions. If you feel like it's an appropriate time to ask, you can ask them during the interview, or you can wait till the end. So, that's, make sure that you are able to like say them, I suppose. Don't stumble like I just did. For number 5, with demonstrating your value. So I know this infographics talking more about like the business world. How can you make an organization make more money, etc. So if you're, interviewing for, retail or for food, which is often like what our students do for their first jobs, you may not be able to talk about how you're going to reduce costs, but you can talk about your customer service skills and how you help other people, whether through volunteering or babysitting, or other types of like people-oriented things you've done.
There may be actually a way that you can reduce costs by sharing examples of your honesty and integrity in, let's say, a restaurant. That may give your prospective employer some confidence that you're not going to steal from them. You're not going to be eating the food on the job that you're preparing. You're going to be following the rules that are set in place. And so doing so, you are saving the company potential money over someone else.
But you don't necessarily say, I'm not going to eat the food at the job.
No, you wouldn't say that. You'd say, I'm a very honest person, and when rules are put in front of me, I follow those rules.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't come right out and say, I'm not going to eat all your food. And also don't allude to anything. If you get into a rambling situation, that's usually not a good thing. I would, and you don't want to inadvertently say something that gives your potential employer pause. For instance, if you get into some sort of conversation about how there's food in your house and your tummy's grumbly today because you're so hungry, inadvertently, that if I was the interviewer, I'd be like, is this person, are they okay at home? Are they gonna be like taking advantage of me and eating all this food while they're supposed to be working?
That's a point I didn't consider. I mean, I wouldn't say that stuff anyway, but yeah.
Right.
We transition now to the after the interview. So, closing the interview, thanking the person you're interviewing. If you forgot their name, don't try to remember the name. Sometimes your nerves get the best of you and you're like, I completely forgot, but thank them sincerely. Share that you have expressed interest in the position. And for some places, you can schedule a follow-up phone call. Other places may say, we'll contact you. Don't contact us. And that's not them trying to be a jerk. That might be their policy for their organization.
Right.
But I think number 2 is really important. Even when they say, don't contact us, number 2 is like sort of the exception because you're just thanking them in a different way. So it can be an email or a handwritten note. Handwritten notes are usually a bit better, but I've sent emails and they've been fine as well. Whatever you can do.
So I don't know the answer to this question, like which is better, Christina. I think in certain fields, the thank you email is becoming really, really popular because of the sort of immediacy of it.
Right.
So like a handwritten note, I always found that difficult because I thought, what if I'm interviewing and these people are making this decision 2 days from now, which often happens. You may be the last interview and they be making this decision right away. So you go home, you write those wonderful thank you notes, and you address them and mail them out that day. And maybe the decision's made before they actually get that mail. And you're like, well,
True. I did an email for this job because I knew that they were going to make a quick decision.
yep. So know what the timeline is, I guess.
Hmm.
And I would say the handwritten note is good, but also if your handwriting is terrible,
Oh, yeah.
don't write a handwritten note. Don't type a letter, send an email.
I prefer an email as an interviewer. I would prefer to get that.
Yep.
I don't know. I like a good handwritten note. I think it depends.
I do too,
personality.
Christina.
Also, something that someone has told me is that if you have the note, you don't have to go home and send it. You can just, after your interview, write it somewhere else, wherever you are, and then you slip it in with a postage stamp. So
Wait, slip it into like their mailbox?
maybe not their mailbox, but like a mailbox that's like on, like in the campus or in the vicinity. I don't know.
That's strange, I think.
I haven't done it.
I don't know what I would think if I received a handwritten note with a stamp on it and no postmark. I'd be like, what is this strange thing?
Maybe
And
don't.
I might throw it right in the trash.
But you could, I guess, you could leave it with the secretary.
Yeah, you could leave it with the secretary.
Administrative assistant. So,
Yeah.
Number 3 is also dependent on the job, the place. We talk a lot about like following up with the colleges or scholarships, about staying in contact with them, expressing your interest. You want to know that you're interested but not desperate.
Right.
Which is very much like dating.
Yeah, and if you interviewed right before this time of social distancing and isolation, you're probably concerned. You may not be getting a call back right away. You're probably concerned about that, and it's likely that those people have they're putting priority on some different things, and they have kind of put your job search to the wayside for now. It's just on pause. So do you call every week to check in? No, you call the human resources office or the hiring manager, that whoever reached out to you, and you call maybe once a month or something and just say, hey, I'm interested. I want to let you know I'm still interested in this job, and I'm looking to see if there is any sort of timeline on it.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes if they already give you the timeline and they're saying like, oh, I'll get back to you in 2 weeks time, and 2 weeks go by and you haven't heard from them, then it is appropriate to be like, oh, I'm just checking in. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Just wanted blah, blah, blah. If you're curious, well, what were you going to say, Andy?
Oh, I was just going to give an example.
I lost my train of thought, so it's fine.
Okay. So before I sort of knew what I was doing, I guess, one of my first teaching jobs that I applied to, and no one really taught me the etiquette of following up on a job.
Right.
Valley or Geneseo, thank you. But so that first teaching job that I interviewed for, I didn't follow up on it. And like 2 months went by, and it was in the summertime. It's like July, and I'm thinking to myself, I really should have heard something before. Why have I not heard anything? And I just let it go. The school year came and went, and I made the assumption that I didn't get that job. And 4 months after I interviewed, I got a postcard and letter saying, thank you for your interest for this job. We've hired someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, no kidding, you've already started the school year.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that happens more often than you think.
I remember I applied for a job. 6 months later, I did send a follow up though. I sent up a follow up, didn't hear anything back. Then 6 months later, I heard that we will be following up with applicants soon. And at this point, I was already interviewing for this job, and I was like, whatever. You don't wait 6 months to, talk to an applicant. It wasn't a higher education institution. It was a nonprofit. So
Sometimes that does happen because you don't know what that office situation is like. Maybe they're going through something. Maybe they lost another staff member and they're just trying to get by, and so
mhm,
they may not have the time to address their staffing needs. Although if they're just trying to get by, they should probably get more staff in there, right?
exactly.
But you never know what the situation is. So really good idea to just follow up and ask for a reply. If you're not getting a reply, follow up every week.
Good stuff. I think we covered that well within the time frame. And we didn't even cover like virtual interviewing. That's a whole different beast, which we can talk about that later.
Mhm.
Because increasingly, the first step of interviews have been either phone calls or video interviews.
Mhm.
Usually, that's not for retail or for food service, but when you're getting into other types of work. But the tips we talked about today work well for your first job.
I think they do.
Mhm.
Just be real and be honest.
Also, be kind.
And be sincere.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to be able to say, I don't know, but it's not okay to just not know. If you don't know something, say, I don't know that off the top of my head, but I would, here's where I would start looking for it. So show them that you're a problem solver and that you won't just say, yeah, I don't care. I don't know that. I don't really care. No, I don't know that right at the moment, but I will find that out.
Mm-hmm.
I actually lost the job once because I was asked, do you know what an EpiPen is? And actually at the time, I didn't know what an EpiPen was.
Mm-hmm.
My response was, I've never had any experience using an EpiPen. And I don't actually know what all the uses for it are. But I would be happy to look it up and get back to you. And I didn't get that job that year, probably because I was unprepared for such a job. I got it the next year and I knew what an EpiPen was.
Yeah, that makes sense. And something I want to add, being on the side of the interviewer, is that if you looked at candidates for jobs before, when you get to be on that side, because eventually you likely are, there's so many great people out there, and it's not just a slight on you if you don't get the job. Oftentimes it's about fit and what is missing at an organization and how a candidate could be that missing puzzle piece. And sometimes, they pick the wrong puzzle piece, but it's not anything that's on you. But when I had to interview for like 15, 16 Vista spots, and I was interviewing so many great candidates, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to pick 15. And most places just have to pick one out of a pool of 50 plus candidates. So it gave me a lot more, I wanted to say empathy, but I felt better about myself when I wasn't hearing back from places, or maybe if I had an interview and it didn't pan out the way I wanted it. I was able to be like, okay, maybe I just wasn't the right fit for them. So.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. With that, we should probably end because we have like 6 minutes before advising with Letchworth.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alexander's at 2 p.m. today. So.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you very much for coming.
Have a wonderful day.
Join us tomorrow. Bye-bye.